Okay. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's Nisanka from Coaching with Nisanka, and I have got a very special guest to talk about a very special subject. So we're going to talk about parental alienation, which I know most of you will probably have a lot of questions about. So stick with me. So I'm not going to waste time introducing myself. Most of you know me anyway, but I want to introduce Sarah Squires, and Sarah helps people get ready for court, especially those who have been in narcissistic relationships and who are co-parenting with them. And Sarah helps get them ready for the court process. So I will let you talk, Sarah. Introduce yourself. We'll start a little bit. How did you get into it and what you exactly do? And then we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you. So how did I get into it? Well, pretty much the same way as anyone gets into it. You have an experience.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell happened? What's going on? My background is social work. I thought I had a pretty good understanding of, child abuse, those sort of parenting behaviours. But this was new. This was off the scale, and I felt powerless. I felt angry that even with all of that knowledge, still didn't have a clue what I was dealing with. Felt ashamed because obviously I'd probably dealt with it as a social worker and didn't know. And so felt a lot of guilt about times when I might have missed it or not asked the right questions. And then, as with everyone else, went down the rabbit hole or took the blue pill, whichever metaphor you to use. And so I need to know more. I need to understand everything. It's part of who I am, that I need to know why people behave the way that they do. I've always been fascinated with like serial killers and just understanding where they come from, what leads people to make those choices, myself included in that. Why do I make these choices? Just retrained, did NLP, life coaching, counselling, I just wanted to talk about it because I've been doing this about 6 or 7 years. I lose track of time. I think COVID basically made me realize I don't know what time it is anymore. But 5 or 6 years, maybe 7 years. At the start, it was about just talking about it because when I first started doing it, I was one of the only English voices to be talking about it. So there was nowhere for me to go when I wanted that information. I wanted to understand what is happening. So I went to Google and put in some of those behaviours. Why are they using the children? Why are they using them as weapons? That kind of thing. And started coming up with alienation, narcissism. Yeah. Oh my God, this is a whole new world. Didn't know what those terms meant. And so spent a good amount of time researching, understanding, going really deep on the psychology side, reading a lot of articles, reading a lot of books, and just talking about it. Yeah. So everything I learned, I just did a video and said, oh, this, and then there's this. And then obviously I was able to match it with my experience. That's kind of where it started. So what I do now, I have two I have a counselling service, which is for victims of narcissistic abuse, because again, there was nothing. There was no specialism. What I found through my own one-to-one work with clients was counsellors weren't getting it. There was a lot of emphasis. There was a lot of emphasis on trying to heal the relationship, and sometimes it's just not possible. And sometimes that's okay. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to go, I can't do anymore. And yet I was getting a lot of feedback that people weren't understanding. They were being gaslighted, and people felt gaslighted by therapists. We went down that route. I have a team of counsellors now who each have lived experience, because again, you've got to been there to know what your client is saying is true. Because I remember at times when I was experiencing it, sort of saying it out loud, I thought, I sound crazy. I sound absolutely mental saying this out loud. I know why people aren't taking me seriously, but I also know that I'm right. Yeah. And So for the counsellor, that was a big part of it for us, is and for me when recruiting counsellors, I need counsellors who just know that when you say my ex here, I feel like my ex is stalking me because my phone keeps going off at a certain time. To anyone else, they'd just go, well, it's probably something in your phone, take it to like your phone store. But to those of us that are in the know and have been there, we go, yeah, it probably is them.
Yeah, it's right. I know. Or fake accounts on Facebook. All of a sudden, it's like,
Absolutely. And that was a huge part of the service that I wanted to offer, was the safe space to be understood and not to have to explain why you felt that, just for someone to go, yep, could well be them. You're not paranoid, you're not this, you're not that. Just to be able to hold that space and hear you for what you're saying. The other side of that has come about with the court stuff, came about because I was working with a lot of mothers and fathers who contact was being either undermined or completely prevented from happening with their children. And it kept coming up time and time again, same sort of patterns. So yeah, just wanted to again provide that service that help them deal with their emotions as part of it, because narcissists, or cluster B personality disorders, whatever we want to use, we'll use narcissists, but we're not diagnosing. I want to be clear, I'm not diagnosing anyone. They kind of a multitude of different traits, but we'll use that term. But ultimately, narcissism is an attachment disorder, and it's trauma based, and so naturally it's going to create attachment issues within both your relationship as an adult to adult and an intimate, but also with the children. And obviously as a child protection social worker, my focus has always been on the children involved in these situations. And so the emotional side of it for parents, if they've got PTSD, which they will have from these relationships,
inevitable results.
You just don't make it out without it.
No, you don't.
Our nervous systems are very fragile. They're brilliant, but they are fragile. And so when we have a dysregulated nervous system, because of what we've experienced through that relationship, that push-pull dynamic, that walking on eggshells, then when we're parenting, we're not parenting from a gentle wave of a nervous system. We're parenting from a heart monitor having a heart attack. And your children pick up on that. And that's where the narcissist gets in. That's the crack that they get in. So, and also from the court perspective, they use that dysregulated nervous system and therefore your emotions and the PTSD, your brain's not working properly, they use all of those things against you to make you look like you're the problem, to do the Darvo, to switch it. And so that's where Get Cut Ready came out of, is one, this is what you're going to face. This is the reality of it. Because again, people weren't really talking about that side of it. Lawyers and judges just don't get it. And so it was a service to be able to say, look, you need to be prepared for what you're going to find when you enter the courtroom, because it's not going to be what you think it is. It's going to be a head fuck, excuse my language. And they are, they're going to present as someone completely different. There's going to be a lot of lies. There's going to be, this suddenly either very vulnerable woman or very caring father that you don't recognize, because that's not what you were in a relationship with. But suddenly here they are, and everyone's buying it. And so it was about helping them to understand what the tactics were that they were going to face, but also, what are you playing into this? What are you bringing? Because those first few hearings can be so vital. You get those wrong, it sets your case off on a tangent. It
does, doesn't it? Yeah.
But if you can get those two right, you can at least stay on a level with them, because either kids lose contact with one parent, either because one parent is given too much power, or the courts just don't recognise it and basically label the parent with the healthier parent as being neurotic or abusive, you know, depending on the narrative. So yeah, Get Cut Ready was all about that. Sorry, I realised I've just talked for ages there. So.
No, it's all interesting things, and I know from working from my own experience, as well as working from the other clients, it's the same story that everybody says. I went to so many different counselors. I wasn't believed. I was told to change my behavior. I was told to be present and communicate this way. I was told to reconcile, and I was told not to assume. And you know, anybody who's been through this, we really cannot make this shit up. It is happening. It is happening. And the narcissistic people, the way I see it, they have a knack to be very creative of exerting that control somehow. You will manage to find a way to manage one situation, and then they know you've managed it, and they're like, oh, I'm going to find a different way. So
we call it whack-a-mole. That's how we used to describe it.
Whack-a-mole. It is a whack-a-mole. Yeah,
another one pops up.
Another one pops up. It really is. And then it's really important, like you said, you know, nervous system regulation, healing, you know, changing certain patterns, etc., and supporting your children from a place of calmness and connection. I think we're definitely on the same page. But today's topic is parental alienation. I really want to dig into it a little bit deeper, because it's been, from my own research, it's been very touchy subject. It's been one of those controversial topics as well. Like, you know, court is like, don't know what we want to talk about it, whatnot. So what is parental alienation, and how does that take place in the dynamic?
So, okay, let's head first this. So the term parental alienation is controversial. I don't like it per se, but we got to use it because it's in case law, you know, so we've got to stick with it. One side of the argument is it's only used by abusive men to deny domestic abuse. That does happen, 100% that happens. But it's also a very real phenomena, because if you've been in a relationship with narcissists, you know that they are absolutely capable of undermining your relationship with your child. So parental alienation is where one, I say parent, but it could also be a step parent, a grandparent. Sometimes even siblings get hooked into doing this behavior as well, but deliberately undermines the relationship with the other parent, the child-parent relationship, through psychological manipulation. So what they do, and again, this goes back into the nervous system regulation stuff, is narcissists, as you know, are completely unable to regulate their own emotions. They can't co-regulate with their children because they can't self-regulate. So in the relationship, you would have been the person that did all of that co-regulation. That's what the walking on eggshells is all about. You micromanaging their emotions so that they don't tip over the edge. And so you've been responsible for that. As soon as you're out of the picture, you know, you leave them, they leave you, however the relationship ends, the child can then become that regulatory other for the parent. And children of narcissists, or children that have grown up in that dynamic, are hypersensitive to the smallest changes in people's nervous systems and their emotions. And so the narcissist doesn't necessarily need to say anything. They're just, their mood needs to switch, and the child knows, I need to change my behavior. And so when for alienation to occur, this would be, so I see with non-resident parents, what sometimes happens is there's a guilt trip that's played on the children, sorry. So the non-resident parent will use a lot of, I'm so lonely without you, I really miss you when you're not here, and you know, almost like an underlying suicide threat of, I only live for the time when you're here, which isn't true. We know that's all bull crap. We know that actually they couldn't give it 2 rats. They're off living the life of Riley. They need that. Oh, but we love you so much.
Hello. love you. I love you. I love you. I love you for expressing it the way it needs to be expressed, because there is no other way of expressing the bull crap.
We could go into the psychological language, but I'm all about keeping it real and talking about the experience of it, because that's just how I work. So the child will start to feel guilty when they're away from the other parent and worry about that other parent. And then they might start saying, I want to spend more time with that parent, because they might not necessarily verbalize because I'm worried about them or because this. The pressure has been put on them that they want to spend more time with that parent. Obviously, the other way of doing that is the role reversal, which is where the child becomes responsible for the adults. So rather than the being a normal hierarchical structure, it becomes flipped. So the child becomes responsible. And then with the child being responsible, every time, so when they come back from contact, the other parent might say, oh, did you have a nice time? And the kid might go, yeah, it was really good. We did this, we did that with the other. And the narcissistic parent will be like,
yes.
So the kid knows, okay, so I best not say that. So next time they come back, did you have a nice time? It was okay. And there's a little bit more, oh, well, okay. So they get a bit more back from the parent at this one. So the next time they come back, the kids learn and comes back and say, oh, no, it was awful. Oh, baby. Oh, I'm so sorry. It was so terrible. I know, they're awful people, aren't they? What a horrible person. And the child, because they've got all this attention, it's like, yeah. They're terrible. They said this, they said that. Boom.
Yeah.
The narcissist is like, right, we'll draw that out. They can create false memories within the children. They did that when you were little as well. Do you not remember? Oh, it definitely happened. And then the kid will buy into that because they're vulnerable and they're susceptible. And before you know it, you've got a child who is saying, actually, I don't want to spend time with that parent. I don't like them anymore. They're horrible to me. When you ask the child, okay, what do? They can't actually give you a very good answer. It'll be something like, they feed me chicken nuggets. And that's the reason for not wanting to see them anymore. They're really flimsy reasons that are given. So this is where it becomes difficult, because for some, it's children who are justifiably saying, I'm not happy with this parent. They tend to be like the older kids, really, because they've had a bit more of an experience. Younger children, they might be, oh, I'm not having a great time when I go, or that. But we as humans, part of the animal kingdom, our attachment need is to have caregivers. We don't naturally reject a caregiver, because it's been pre-programmed into us biologically for such a long time. It's the only way we survive, if we've got caregivers around us. So if a child is categorically being like, no way, I hate them, I'm not seeing, particularly like really small children, then that's an area, that's something that needs more exploration of what is going on here, because it isn't a natural thing for a child to reject a parent. I'm not going to go any further than that, because I don't want to offend anyone that might be in that experience, but it's definitely at the point where I would be wanting sort of experts to come involved. And by the way, Kafkas are not experts.
I was going to say,
mash
Kafkas, they're not experts from my own experience. They're not, they don't get it. They don't get it. Neither are the schools, I have to say, because they don't have the legal power, they don't have the statutory guidance, nor they have the training. That their approach is, we want to remain unbiased, and in that I would say unawareness, I would say a significant amount of evidence that you can gather through watching the children gets missed. That would have actually helped cases like parental alienation, because it is the teachers can observe these changes in behavior, and if the school had the training, they would be able to actually build a case, not biasedly but unbiasedly through objective observations, just with the safeguarding and well-being of children in mind, and I think that's why I believe training is essential. I want to ask you another question. So that's the parental alienation, and obviously, narcissistic people use trashing you to children, digging up your past and dishing out what you have shared with them. Like in my my example, I've had a very traumatic childhood growing up, so I sort of disclosed some very, very, delicate information about the traumatic childhood. What was said to my child was, your mother wasn't loved as a child, so she doesn't know how to love you. So that's like, and now I know, and you're absolutely right about that. Like, children can be so sensitive to every little change because their brains are like filled with this wrong information, and they don't have a reference point, nor they don't have the emotional bandwidth, at that young age to process what's going on, and they can't pick loyalty to one parent, and then they get trapped between this crossfire. So my question to you is there a difference between brainwashing a child and parental alienation, or are they very similar?
They're similar. Brainwashing is part of alienation, definitely. And let's be honest, all narcissists will alienate.
Yes.
Enough.
Yes.
It's they can't help but do that because of their own psychological makeup. They can't deal with being made to feel inferior. They cannot cope with being abandoned, and they have a lot of transgenerational trauma that is bubbling under the surface. And so divorce, separation, child custody, it's like the melting pot for all of those things being triggered. So they can't cope with your children loving you because that makes them feel inferior. They're terrified that their children are going to love you more than they love them. Boom, abandonment wound. The transgenerational is they've got to replay what happened in their childhood, but make it better. But they do it by projecting their experience onto the child in the present day. So there's almost a delusional element to alienation. So from the brainwashing, it's more projection and gaslighting. It's about making the child. So again, another example is that a narcissist would say to their child, "What colour is the sky today?" The child, "I know this one, it's blue." "What are you talking about? It's not blue." The child's like, okay, is it green? "Oh my God, I can't believe you don't know what colour the sky is." So eventually, what does the child go? "I don't know, what colour is the sky?" And so that's how they get control, is they tell you what the wrong answers are. They won't let you, or, even when you're giving the right answer, they're telling you it's the wrong answer. Eventually you just go, "You tell me what the answer is." And we know that. We've been in relationships. We know that eventually we end up going, "You tell me. I will just go by whatever you're telling me, because it's a hell of a lot easier than having an argument about it." And that's how they brainwash children, is the child knows whatever answer I give, or if I express my needs or my feelings, there's no point. I will just do whatever they need me to do. They will tell me what reality is, and I'll just go along with it, because it's so much easier for children. Even as adults, we can't always separate that out. That's cognitive dissonance for us as adults with a fully formed brain, albeit probably traumatized from our own childhoods and situations. But for children, that it's still, all these neural pathways are still being built. This is whoosh. This is like affecting the brain structure of children, because they are not learning to observe the world and trust what they feel about it. They are learning to go, I don't trust what I feel about it. I need to ask someone else for validation. At the moment, it's that parent. As they grow older, it'll be another abusive person.
Abuser. Yeah.
So it just creates that transgenerational cycle that is evident in this relationship. It will just become evident in the next relationship, and the next relationship, and then it'll carry on until someone stops it.
I know. And I was going to say, this is why it's so important for the solid parent or the healthy parent, healthy adult in that relationship in child's life, to be able to form healthy relationships with children, and actually from a place of reparenting themselves. Because what I always say to people is, like, children know love when they experience it. And they might not know the difference between the love and abuse because they might be confused, but they know where to lean on, where the safe space is, because they experience that safety with that solid adult. They might not be able to label the abuse for what it is. They might not be able to describe what's going on, but they sure know the difference between the clarity and the confusion. So narcissistic parent will continue to confuse the child, right, by creating an emotionally, psychologically unsafe environment, whereas the healthy adult can remain clear, calm, regulated, and co-regulate with children and give that child the experience of love. And they know the difference. And that's how adult children, as they grow up, when they become a little bit more adept at emotional language and the skills, then they end up choosing one person. And that's not brainwashing. That's a choice that the children make from their experience. That's not brainwashing, right?
No, and I think that's the difference. I think we never stop loving our parents. It doesn't matter how awful they were to us. There's an element of love and needing them. You know, even kids. I've worked with abused children. You know, child protection. They don't reject an abusive parent. Often they work harder for that love. But at some point, they're able, you know, when they have done the work, when they have healed, they are able to look and say, I accept that parent for who they are. They are never going to be the parent that I deserve, but I accept them for who they are. I have got control of this relationship because I can put boundaries in place, and I can dip in and dip out as I choose. And that's how we know it's a healthy choice. When it's not, when it's been manipulated by a parent that the child rejects, the child isn't able to say any of those things at all. They're not able to understand why. They're not able to verbalize their reasoning behind these feelings. So they can, you know, in one breath they can say, "Oh, I had an awful." So this is not alienated children, but in one breath they can say, "Oh, it's really difficult," you know, mum or dad. They just don't listen. They don't pay attention. I don't ever feel that they hear me, and you know, they leave me alone for long periods of time, and I feel scared, you know, whatever. But on the other hand, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I still want to go and see them," because they need that parent, and they don't want to reject that parent, but they also can acknowledge this is the experience I'm having. And that's what a healthy parent can do, is hold the space for a child to say, this is the reality of the situation that I've got, but I do still want a relationship with them. Now that's hard, because obviously naturally you kind of, part of the dynamic for many victims is that codependency, that rescuer. So when we hear that, we're like, right, I need to go full on protective mummy bear or daddy bear. And actually that's not helpful, because what we need is we need our children, obviously if it's severe, yes, you do have to do something.
Yeah, of course.
The best thing you can do for your children is give them the life skills to cope with having that as a parent.
Yes.
It's not about taking them out of it and going, no, you can't ever see them again, and shielding them completely. They're always going to be their parent, and they're going to keep popping up in their life. So the best thing you can do is, it's almost like exposure therapy of, okay, this is the reality of the parent. When they come home, when they say, I've had a really difficult time, this happened, you provide the space for them to share that. You regulate their emotions with them. You help them to make sense of what they're experiencing, and help them to create protective mechanisms. Because that's what will protect them throughout their entire lifetime. Whereas if you do it, they're not going to learn anything, because then they're just going to go into another relationship with an adult and experience it, and you've not given them the skills. So as hard as it sounds, and it is counterintuitive, you do almost need to give them the experience, so that you can give them the skills.
Absolutely.
And that's not about talking trash about the other parent. That is just about holding the space for that child, and you then talking through, okay, so what did it feel like when they said that to you? And why was it that you didn't say, do you feel comfortable in saying something back to them? Do you feel comfortable in telling them how you feel? What would you need for you to feel comfortable in telling them how you feel? And it's just planting those seeds sometimes of, actually, I don't feel comfortable telling them these things, and maybe you never will. And it's, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm making it, I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying it's easy. It's friggin' not easy. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do as a parent. It's the hardest experience you'll ever have to go through, and parenting should not have to be this hard.
No, but it is.
That's where we're at.
That's the thing. I think there's some element of accepting it radically. This is where we're at. This is the other parent's nature, and and like you said, the mama bear does come in, or the daddy bear does come in, when you really want to like go all guns blazing, protecting children. But that is something for you to deal with away from children. And when you regulate yourself away, but when you come back to children, the focus has to be, like you said, on their emotional validation, and giving them the tools and teaching them how to put boundaries in place to keep themselves safe. And you can teach children from a very young age how to put boundaries in place, and that comes from a place of actually treating children as more equals in the household, giving them choices, little things that you do on a daily basis to and sort of nurture that connection that you have with your children. Oh, this has been a wonderful conversation so far. I have so many questions. So one last question. Is there any hope for parents whose children have been brainwashed by the narcissistic parent, who's used, obviously, parental alienation as a tool? Is there any hope?
Okay, so this is my personal belief system. I'm going to share it because it can give hope. Not everyone who hears this is going to be ready for it, and it won't resonate with everyone. My belief is that no matter what the outside world is saying, it's your inner world. Your inner world is reflected in your outer world. So if you want to heal anything out there, come in here and do the work. So you are never, ever, ever, ever separated from your child in here. There is no such thing as alienation in here. They're always in your heart. They're always connected to you. On a biological level, they've got your DNA. You literally are never, ever separated from your child. If you could hold that as your hope, and just know it in every core cell of your body, I am connected to my child. I love my child. That, in my experience, is the sort of the foundation for the sprigs of relationship to grow. Because, again, personal experience, when our inner world is reflected by, when our outer world is reflected by our inner world, what alienation really is abandonment. This huge fear of abandonment, huge fear of not being good enough. Find those limiting beliefs. Really heal what those are. One, you will feel a million times better for doing that work. And two, your child, who is connected to you biologically and energetically, they're going to feel these changes. So the work that you do in you is not done in isolation. It affects lots of people, but it particularly affects your children. They are part of your sphere of influence. You can influence them, even if you don't see them, they never speak to you, and they're saying, I hate you. You can do that energetically by doing that inner work. So identify what those limiting beliefs are. There's obviously standard ones, but really get down to the core nitty-gritty. Work with a therapist who absolutely understands what this is, and get down to that level of, okay, so what's really going on here? I'm scared what other people are going to think of me. I'm scared that I'm a failure. I'm scared people are going to think that I'm not a good person. I'm scared that, you know, no one loves me, that I'm unlovable. There's a lot of, I mean, we've got billions of limiting beliefs, but when you get to those core ones and really heal them and start practicing putting that out into the world, and actually, no, I believe I am lovable and people are safe. That's a really key one. Safety. Don't rely on the outside world to be safe. Find safety within your body. Do somatic healing. Heal on a cellular level, so that when you close your eyes, you are your own safe space. All of those things emanate out of you, and I describe it as an alienated child who has been so severely alienated that they don't have a relationship with the other parent or the other family. They're in a prison, in a war zone.
Yeah.
And you might also be in a war. You might be in a war zone yourself if you've not healed. If you've got PTSD, you're still in a war zone. So what child is going to go, I know, I'm going to escape this prison. I'm going to run across the war zone and I'm going to go to another war zone. It's like, well, I might as well stay where I am. It's not safe. Whereas when you become this safe haven, this sanctuary of beautiful, calming presence, then that child is going to go, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make a run for it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get out of this prison and I'm going to go across the war zone because I know that they're strong enough and safe and they'll keep me safe. That's the best hope that I can offer people.
Yeah.
It's become that sanctuary.
Yeah.
And really do it. Really, really, because we know when we feel safe and we know when we don't. Yeah.
That peaceful feeling.
Intelligence is one of the biggest tools in your arsenal. Is to really start to understand what my emotions feel like. What does fear feel like to me?
Yeah.
So I'm not picking it up from Joe Blogs that I walk past in Asda. You know.
Yeah.
Is it mine? If it's not, thanks very much. You can have that back. I'll deal with my own, but I'm not having anyone else's. But if you do that work, which will benefit your child in the moment, but also in the future when they can sense that you are safe and that you are able to protect them from the huge shit show that will come when the child runs. They need to know, because otherwise there's no way they're going to make that run for it.
No,
because they know that the price won't be worth paying, because you won't be able to keep them safe. So the other parent will become Godzilla and grow and come and grab them and drag them back, and the punishment will be so much worse for a child that has done that.
Yeah.
So they'll only do it when they know 100% you're safe, you can protect me. And that doesn't mean protecting in a prison. That means feeling safe.
Absolutely.
It's a very, very different. And again, you have to have gone through that journey. And I know that some people aren't there, and I understand that. And I'm just talking from my own personal belief system. That's been the biggest thing for me, is just getting to a good place in myself where I feel safe, I feel happy, and none of those things are easy. Nothing I've talked about today is easy. I want to caveat everything.
Absolutely.
What I'm trying to say is, yes, there is hope and there are things that you can do. But the system's shit and the situation is terrible. But you can still do a lot of good for yourself and for your children. You are not powerless. You are not hopeless. You have a lot more power than you think. Yeah. It's just tapping into it.
Absolutely. And thank you very much for sharing that hope, because I know I've definitely had several conversations with people who are in this situation. It is, like you said, it's not an easy situation, but there's so much grief, regret, frustration, anger, ferocity in this whole situation, and it is not fair, and the injustice is a big part of it all, knowing that your children have been traumatized and the relationship have been damaged. It's really, really painful. My personal belief is also that we've got to pause rather than going and battling with a system that's not going to serve you well, because I think what we will also do is burn our energy and resources that we have in order to heal if we go try and control the situation, because that is not something that we have in control at all, because they've already taken that control out to a greater deal. So instead of trying to control that situation, like you said, know the power, leave the door open and make it a sanctuary, and they will, when they feel ready, walk back in and be ready to accept, I think, whatever.
I think that's a really key point.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, mediation, court, it's the only system that we have, and so people fall back on it. But so many people neglect the healing side and just say, I just need to get into court. I'm just, and the fine, I get it. It's expensive. You maybe have to make a choice between legal fees and a therapist or a coach.
Yeah.
Choose the coach, choose a therapist. Trust me when I tell you.
I know.
We work with this day in, day out. The people that work with the therapist and the coach get better results in court. It's a no-brainer. So if you've got a choice to make, I can only do one. Trust me, it'll be a lot cheaper to go to a coach or a therapist, heal, really, 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 really do the work and heal, and then they go to court if you have to. Do not try. I mean, if worst case, do both, but please don't neglect the healing part of it, because your ex is using your wounds against you. So if you don't heal, you're just giving them bullets.
Oh, it's such a big relief to hear it from somebody who helps people to get court ready, because that is my personal belief as well. Heal yourself so that you end up disposing bullets that narcissistic people or whoever toxic person can come and freely have access to. You need to starve them of this supply. When they're starved of this supply, you put yourself in a better position, going to the top of the hill, and they can't get to you because you're in a strong place, emotionally they can't get to you anymore. And then, like you said, you have a better chance of presenting yourself better at court.
Completely. And Get Court Ready has trauma healing tools within it, because I think the first thing in the module list, do the healing work. But so many people don't. They ignore that and they go straight to the other bit. That's their choice. I'm not here to force it, but you will 1,000,000%. I could almost stamp a guarantee. You do the healing work, you will get a better result, and you may not even have. I didn't write Get Court Ready because I wanted everyone. I wasn't trying to I'm not trying to get everyone to go into court. Far from it. No. I don't go to court 100%. But I wrote it because people are going to court, and I wanted them to have the tools to go to court, and that includes the healing, but also the very practical stuff around that as well. But no, I would advise anyone, do not enter the courtroom, because it's not made for you; it's made for them.
Yeah, it is made for them. It really is. It's so outdated. It's so corrupted in many ways, and it's very patriarchal, and it's time, energy, money consuming, and you will not get the results that you want for your children because it's not an understanding place. Definitely not a place that understands emotions, I suppose.
Then it doesn't. It's a law unto itself, and it's almost like I feel it doesn't deserve the badge of justice because it couldn't be further from justice.
The justice. Oh my God, yeah.
I don't know any. I work with men and women, so I'm very gender neutral in everything that I do, because I know that it's not about men and women. It's about who you're up against. And actually, abusers present well, end of, whether they're male or female, they present really well and you don't, because you're traumatized, hence the healing. So the court isn't working for anyone. People think, except abusers, and abusers aren't men and women. You know, I want to be clear that abusive behavior is not the sole remit of men. Women can be just
abusive,
as
equally abusive. Yeah,
they
of course.
Really can. But family court isn't working for children. At the bottom line, it's not working for children because judges aren't understand, particularly in this type of abuse, which I understand, because until you've lived it, you can't understand it.
Yeah.
But if they don't, then frigging refer to someone who does understand it.
Yeah.
Don't think that you are so important that you know what you don't know. Acknowledge and say, this is beyond me. This is out of my remit. I'm going to bring someone else in. That would be way better than what we've got right now, which is Kafka's basically not even putting on, like, you know, those really shit plasters that you get that don't stick. That's what Kafka's are. They're like shit plasters that don't stick.
Yeah. They're
not doing any good at all. They think that they are covering wounds or what. They're not. They're not doing anything. They don't. And as a social worker, that was a really painful lesson for me to learn, because I really believed in the training and the foundation of what social workers are about, which is certainly child protection. Social workers and family court, it's about child protection. But unfortunately, they do often put the needs of parents first above the needs of the child.
Yeah.
And they don't see the patterns of behaviour. They don't see the risk that, you know, and sometimes it's beyond logic. And that's why I say about, you know, do the healing, because if it's a beyond logic, it means that there's something. It might be ancestral trauma that's within you. It might be, you know, might be a curse. I mean, like I said, these are my belief systems, so I'm not putting them on anyone else. But when something defies logic, you're going to have to go within and do some really deep diving on that. Because and a lot of these cases don't. And, you know, I'm a great believer, and I'm very grateful for my experience, because it set me on a path to healing wounds that I didn't even know I had. And I wouldn't have known it if I hadn't had this experience. I'd never have known I had them. I'd have just bounced from shitty experience to shitty experience. Whereas I had to, because it was so bad. It's like, well, I'm going to have to do something. And my choice was to really, really understand why did this happen to me? What is it about me that led to this situation? That's not victim blaming. Again, that's me taking responsibility and empowering myself to understand. But again, I'm a great believer in everything happens for a reason, and this is part of a bigger plan that you just can't see at the moment, and it might turn out brilliantly. I believe it will turn out brilliantly. I believe that this experience, if you work with it, if you go with the flow of it, and you know, take the lessons and learn and you heal, in 10 years' time, your life could be, if you do it,
very different. Wow, exactly. Absolutely. I mean, I could not have agreed more. Universe does slap you left, right, and center until you learn the lessons and you change the patterns. And, you know, when you heal past generations, future generations, you definitely stop that trauma being passed down to your children. And then that's the best gift we can give to our children. So in many ways, like you said, but you know, I'm as well grateful that I, you know, stepped in this pile of shit and lived it for a long time, because otherwise I would never have learned the lessons I've learned to put the boundaries in place, and learn the value of healing and peaceful living. Otherwise, you know, you're like doing chase. So I think we've been, oh my God, this is something that we can carry on for like ever, I think. No, me too. I like talking and listening. So we talked about, you know, parental alienation. One last question, actually, very quickly, if you can. What does the court do, or what can the court do or cannot do when somebody brings parental alienation allegations?
well, investigate.
Yeah, of course.
Look at the whole pit. I mean, are you talking like dreamland, what the court could do, or are we talking
Yes.
reality land?
I'm talking about reality, because I think I want people to understand what the reality is before they put their head into it.
So
it's not good, is it?
No, it's not good. Well, the reality is the reality is courts are overloaded, and so they're lazy, and so they're not doing the work that they need to do. That's the reality. That if allegations, whether they're true, whether a parent is being alienated and is saying, "Oh, I'm being," there's alienating behaviour going on here, or it's a false allegation of alienation because actually you're just not a very good parent, and we need some protective measures in place. Whichever side it is coming from, the whole system is overloaded, and they're just not giving enough time, energy, or getting the right people into it. They literally just won in a couple of the hearings, done. Boom. You gone. That, just so you know, a final hearing with a narcissist is never a final hearing, ever. You will be back, because if they don't get their way, then they will drag you back to court. Or they'll breach it so many times that you have no choice but to go back to court yourself. So, and that's, again, part of the problem. Part of what I talk with Get Court Ready is you want to do everything you can to get that robust court order the first time round, so that you don't have to keep bouncing back. I mean, not in an ideal world, in a step up from where we are right now, as soon as allegations are made, because what normally happens is it's not just one side will allege parental alienation, there's always counter allegations. Yes. So when you've got two opposing stories being presented within court, get an expert. Yeah. Get a mental health expert who understands, ideally, family systems, attachment, trauma, personality disorders. Those 4 qualities would be ideal in an expert. And we should have more of these. But it's, it's, as you are probably finding out in this, it's not an easy arena to work in, because narcissists will attack. So if, for example, and we see this a lot, psychologist gives a negative report or an accurate report of them, they will hound that professional until they either have to leave or go off sick. And so a lot of professionals go, it's not worth it. I'm not working in this arena. It's my livelihood at the end of the day. I'm not doing this work. So that's another part of the systemic problem that we've got. Is actually, we don't have a lot of experts who do understand all of these behaviours. But if of the few that there are, you want to be looking at, like, say, attachment, family systems theory, trauma, and ideally personality disorders as well. And also what you need from them is, what does this mean for the children, short term and long term? So what's the impact on them? Because the court needs to know that if they're going to agree to 50-50 in this case, and an expert has said one of these parents has narcissistic tendencies and this is what it looks like, then they need to know what they're doing. You are basically signing over this child to long-term mental health problems, because that's what this parent will do to them. But again, not all psychologists will write reports like that. It's very hit and miss. It's just a completely broken system. It's just, I wish I could be more positive about it, but I am a realist, and I don't think there's any point in sugarcoating. No. I mean, you get some good CAFCAS officers, and there are some good ones. There are some good judges, as there are some good solicitors, as there are some good psychologists. That there's good within all of that, but it is literally a postcode lottery.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It is, which makes your healing even more important, and getting your children into therapy and helping them heal even more important. So I think what it really boils down to is invest your time, money, and energy in healing, because you will that way benefit your children and yourself better, and you can have that post-traumatic growth, which
It's
is,
the
I think,
only control you have in this situation.
it is the only
Is
control you have. It is the only, it is the only justice that you have in this situation as well, I think. Oh my goodness me, I can carry on talking. It's such an interesting topic, and you know, your passion is like, it's just sort of captivating. Talking about, I know, it's just so captivating.
Being passionate about these things is a good and healthy thing, but there we go.
Yes, I agree. So yes, you think life does have a way of getting you a purpose, but also the purpose can also be like sometimes.
Yeah. My purpose be stroking cats and kittens and dogs and puppies all day, please. Yeah. I'd much prefer to come on and talk about that.
I know, God. Yeah, I hear you, agree. So thank you very much. And I'll put all the information down so people can reach out to you if there's anybody, you know, going through this. But just to let anybody know who like to listen to it, how can people get hold of you, Sarah?
2 websites. So if it's court, it's getcourtready.co.uk. If it's therapy, we've got a bunch of free resources on both sites. It's thenurturingcoach.co.uk. Like I say, been doing this a long time, got a lot of resources, free, low cost, and everything's pretty cheap, if I'm honest. Financial abuse is such a huge part of this. I'm not going to hit people when they're suffering. So yeah, I think £57 is Get Court Ready. We do counselling £60 an hour. So, you know, it is accessible, with what I'm saying. You know, support is accessible. There's a lot of free stuff on both of those websites. We offer, with my counsellors, you can have like free consultation to get to know them. We do co-parenting, parental, you know, equally, obviously, you got the Sinker that you can talk to about the coaching needs as well. So my advice to anyone is go with who feel, you know, don't judge it on price primarily, judge it on who you resonate with, because this is about, you want to, ideally you want to work with someone for a fairly long period of time. Choose someone that actually you want to sit across from, not just because I can afford that person, because that's not what it's about. I mean, my team are lovely, they are brilliant, but I'm just saying, get to know the person that you're going to work with. And that's why it's great that there's so much choice out there for people now. Is there's always going to be different people that resonate.
It's a relationship, after all. It's the relationships that will help you heal. Thank you very much. And if you know, if any of you're interested in hearing what I do, www.coachingwithnasanka.com. So on there, have a look. There's some free resources as well. And we'll stay in touch. Thank you very much. I'm gonna turn off the recording, and thank you. Take care. Bye, guys, for watching.